I'd like to talk a little bit about um, computers and homeschooling. I know it's a very hot topic, understandably so, among Catholic parents. One of the reasons why we choose to homeschool, if we're honest, is because we love our children, we're concerned about their souls, and when we consider the environment of modern schools and influences present in those schools, we don't want our children there. We want our children in a place that is safe, and we don't mean that in a cowardly way, as if we have to be afraid of everything. We mean that in a prudent way, as if there are negative influences and harmful influences, and the whole point of parenting is to try and protect our children from those harmful influences. Proverbs teaches that um, bad company corrupts good morals. So anyone who tries to make an argument that putting your children in bad company is good for them contradicts sacred scripture. So we understand what we mean. We understand our concern. I think we can all agree that one of the principal motives in homeschooling, because homeschooling is a pain in the neck. It's expensive, it's difficult, it's exhausting, it's frustrating, it's confusing. And we often consider quitting um, because it's overwhelming at times. But at least in my experience, the one thing that always keeps me going when times get difficult is that I just can't give account to God for why I would have put my children in an environment where the influences weren't good for them. So, protecting our children from bad influences, especially bad spiritual and moral influences, is the principal reason why we homeschool. I mean, that's just a matter of fact. As Catholic families, we homeschool so that our children, like young plants, can grow in a sort of nursery where conditions are either ideal or as good as possible, not as bad as the other options available to us today. And so we bring the kids home, or we keep the kids home, and then we have this question about the internet. And you can see how this is an immediate concern, sort of a contradiction. We keep the kids home from these bad influences, and then we pipe the bad influences right into the house. And it's a source of grief for most Christian parents. It's a source of grief for me and my wife, for sure. And we've considered all the options for what can be done. We've considered, what if we didn't use computers and just used books and printed lessons? What if we tried this computer with this, protection software installed on it? All these different options, 1,000,001 different options. We've experimented with everything. We've tried everything, and I think I can say with the 20 years of experience as a Catholic homeschooling father with a bunch of kids, and I've had my share of naughty kids that have to be watched 24 hours a day. The only solution, and I'll explain why after I say it, the only solution is to allow your children to use computers supervised. That's it. And I'll explain what I mean by that. There's no way that you can neglect your duty of supervising your children and expect a device or a piece of software or the children themselves to keep everything bad away from your children's eyes and hearts. There's nothing that exists that will do that for you, and you know that. The only The only thing that can keep your children safe online is your supervision. Constantly keeping an eye on what they're doing, what they're looking at, what website they're on, and so on. Your supervision is the only thing that can allow them to use the internet safely and responsibly. That's your role as a parent. Now, some parents will simply not want to do that. And frankly, I think that's being spiteful, um, because if you don't allow your children to use these tools, you're really denying them access to amazing resources that would all be available to them if you would just offer some supervision and keep things under control by your own effort. So I think taking kids off the computers, not using computers, really I think that's just spiteful and silly, and I don't recommend that at all. If your children are going to go into the world, even religious communities, we communicate and use computers for everything now. There's just no way around it. It's like refusing to use books in the 1400s. It's not an option. We have to teach our children to use these tools responsibly. We have to supervise them while they use them, and we have to help them to enjoy all the benefits and all the resources that they make available to them that wouldn't be available otherwise. So your supervision is the answer, and there's no way around it. There's no better solution, no alternative. Spiting your children, spiting yourself, and pretending you're an Amish family and you're only going to use books. It's not going to work. There's too much to study. The books that you would need for a quality Catholic education would be too expensive, and you'd end up just dumbing down the studies until you had this cheap set of books, your box of Seton workbooks or whatever, just some library books, but you wouldn't have the materials necessary for a real Catholic education. They would cost thousands and thousands of dollars, and they're accessible for free on the internet. And even in the Classical Liberal Arts Academy, we don't have to charge anything to provide students with access to all the study materials if they can use a computer. Not only that, but the computer allows the kids to communicate, to get tutoring help, to post on the forums, to ask questions, to communicate with other students, to take tests, to submit assignments, on and on and on. There's just so many benefits, and you'd really be shooting yourself in the foot to say, we're not going to use the computer because there are these potential problems, all of which are in your control and easy to keep out with your supervision. So I really encourage you to resist this sort of ignorant and lazy reaction or overreaction to the problems that can result from using the internet and computers, and just accept the fact that it's good for your children if you give the effort and do the work that's needed to supervise them and let them use these tools. So what we do in our family, which I found pretty effective, is that my wife manages the children during the day. So we've got 7 children currently homeschooling, ages 6 up to 16. We've got 5 or 6 Chromebooks. They cost around $200 a piece. We've got 5 or 6 of them that the kids use during the day. They all sit in my office whenever my wife's not with the kids. They sit in my office and they're plugged in and charging. And then when my wife plans on working with the children in the schoolroom, she comes in, grabs the Chromebooks, brings them in, sets all the kids up, and she is there with them as they use the computers, and everything's fine. When she's done with the kids and it's time to wrap up, all the computers come back into my office. They're plugged into charge, and and nobody has access to them. That's how my wife handles the computers, and as I said, things work pretty well that way. So you can make good use of computers and not spite your children and take that resource away from them. I certainly don't recommend trying to give your kids an education with, only with books or with printed paper. It's not realistic. It's not going to work. So your supervision, your effort, is the best thing you can do for your children, to let them enjoy all these resources, gain all these benefits, and enjoy a very, very rich classical Catholic education like no one's ever had access to in the history of the world. So consider that. If you'd like to discuss this, as I said, I know this is a controversial subject, but I really think that what I recommend here is the best option, and I'm saying that with 20 years of homeschooling experience. And I think that if you're willing to do the work, you can give your kids the best. So if you'd like to discuss it, comment below, and we'll do so. God bless.